And it's not that I'm against technology, but government is so corrupt that they covered up how bad 3 Mile Island was. Turned it out it was over 100 times the radiation that they had claimed was released. That's now on record. There is a big experimental reactor and a sub-reactor here in Austin, Texas. The general public doesn't even know that the J.J. Pickle Research Facility is one of the biggest research reactors in the world. Where I live, there's a gigantic nuclear reactor, actually 2 of them, and the general public doesn't even know what's going on. When my dad was at UT in the 60s, they had one downtown. At least they moved it up north. Okay? So the issue is, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the denial that the nuclear industry does not have a very good safety record. It turns out most of the time they release radiation as steam when the public isn't looking. And that's why I like coal. Coal isn't perfect, but let me tell you, it won't turn your hair orange. It won't turn, you know, suck the paint off your house and give you an orange afro, as they say. And, oh, what's that movie with Danny DeVito and the guy's trying to sell him speakers? And he says, man, this stuff will... No, it's Ghostbusters, where he says it'll suck the paint off your house and give you a permanent orange afro. The point is that, you know, a little bit of gallows humor here, folks, because this is very, 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 very serious. So here is the Tokyo News. Meltdown caused nuke plant explosion. Government Safety Board says that, yes, the Fukushima facility did melt down. Here's another report. AP's reporting this. Russia Today as well. BBC also reporting. Nuclear plant designer says Japanese government suppressing scale of crisis. Yeah, no kidding. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know when a containment facility blows sky high because the explosion's so big that the reactor just blew up. Steam doesn't do that. Hydrogen doesn't do that, ladies and gentlemen, not at the levels it's in a plant. Continuing here, the biggest issue that I haven't even gotten to yet is fallout. There are 6 reactors in crisis mode. The Japanese government now admits that. And that's 6 that are having big problems right now at 3 different locations across Japan. But at the Fukushima facility, there are 6 reactors. So I would up that to 11 reactors. Because Fukushima is 6. When they say 6, they're talking about Fukushima and 5 others. But if Fukushima is 6 reactors, and then that means they've got 5 more, 6 and 5 is 11. So Japan really has 11 reactors, 6 of them preparing to go critical right now, 6 of them on the verge of meltdown. 1 has already achieved meltdown. We'll be right back. Stay with us. And the winds are coming towards the U.S. By the way, we're going to be opening the phones up, but I really only want to talk about and, you know, hear from you on, because it's so important, and our fellow humans, the Japanese, are in so much trouble. I really want to focus in on the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the tsunami, and yes, guess who is slated to get the first dose in the trade winds and in the jet stream from the fallout of Fukushima #1 that we know blew up and sent its radioactive uranium-laced payload into the atmosphere. Guess who is directly in the trade winds, and above that, the jet stream, scheduled to be arriving here in the next day and a half? You guessed it, ladies and gentlemen. You guessed it. The winds blow from Japan towards the United States west coast. It is going east. So Japan's east is the United States west coast. And I've looked at the trade winds. It will disperse the radiation from within about the area of central Canada down to southern California. Is set to be getting the fallout from the one plant that's already blown sky high of the 6 at Fukushima Reactor 1. There's Reactor 1 through 6, and we'll put the article up on screen for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. Japanese nuclear meltdown confirmed. That was our article we got out last night. We had the original article reported on media cover-up underway with nuke meltdown. And just 5 or 6 hours later, the Japanese government did come out and confirm that there was a meltdown at Fukushima number 1. And gee, watching it blow up and clearly damage Fukushima 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, it was no surprise that suddenly they started reporting, oh no, other reactors are set to melt down now, because one of them blew up right next door to the others. What do you think that does? And suddenly they started handing out radioactive iodine to people 6 miles away, then 20, now 50. Now they're calling in 10,000 troops, 30,000 troops, 50,000 troops in full hazmat gear. They're giving the public radioactive iodine because when fission is achieved, meltdown is achieved, then it starts putting off radioactive iodine, and what gland in the body absorbs it? The thyroid. And if you get a dose of radioactive iodine, it kills you in just a few days to a week or so, because your thyroid absorbs it and then literally dies. And you've got a big rotten gland in your body, and then you die. And don't think that our media is going to tell us if radiation detectors go off. I remember when they had Desert Storm 2 in 2003, radiation detectors went crazy in Western Europe, and they went crazy in England. Major universities picked up the depleted uranium isotope, which is highly toxic and radioactive. And I've had the former head of the DU weapons program on to explain how radioactive it still is. It's the word depleted is deceptive. And A, it's poisonous, very small particulate, and B, it causes massive increases in cancer and is radioactive. Now, remember, Iraq is to the east. Okay, and the trade winds go to the east. So it had to go all the way out of the Middle East, across Central Asia, into the Far East, and all the way across the Pacific, and back across the United States, and back through England and Europe to be picked up by the radiation detectors. But U.S. universities that came out in the news were ordered under Homeland Security, National Security. They use it to cover up toxic waste activity by corporations and government, to not report on DU meters. So the U.S. was closer in line to the fallout from the tons and tons of depleted uranium that were used. They were in line. We were in line to get more than Europe, but Europe allowed the news to come out of what their detectors picked up. So what's the moral of the story? You're not going to be told about the radioactive iodine. You're not going to be told about the uranium. You're not going to be told about the cesium, which is very deadly. You're not going to be told about any of that. Remember, the government doesn't tell you jack squat. If you think the government cares about you, up until 1991, it was illegal for our military, except for in special situations, to use depleted uranium. If the Russians came across into Germany during the Cold War with their 10-to-1 superiority with tanks, DU was to be served out from special weapons caches, armories, as an emergency last-ditch weapon, along with tactical nukes for point-blank range warfare. By point-blank range, you're talking half-mile or less. The Davy Crockett two-man nukes, all of it. I mean, we're talking big missile launchers that 2 guys can carry, that launch nukes. DU tip, so, a team with 50 cals can take out T-72 tanks. The problem is you only use it once a nuclear war is already on, because there's a 4.5 billion year half-life on it. If you breathe one whiff of it, on average, it lowers your life expectancy to about age 50 for a man, about 53 for a woman. If you get any of it in your lungs, you are the walking dead. Suddenly, they ignored Dr. Doug Rockey, the physicist who wrote the book on it, the other physicist. Didn't matter what the government scientists had told them. They said, serve it out to everybody, use it. It's on. Use it at shooting ranges all over the U.S., National Guard bases, use it anywhere you want. And they use it every base in the country now, wherever they want. They use it in Puerto Rico, just a few miles from resorts. They use it in Hawaii because they don't care anymore. And so the government, when the fallout hits the U.S., and undoubtedly there's going to be some, one reactor is already melted down. They say it could go even more critical. It's still cooking. They're pouring salt water in on it, what the U.S. Government agencies called an act of desperation. Because it's already melted down partially and exploded. But it would continue to melt down and continue to explode. So water injected into troubled nuclear power plant to avert disaster. Japanese authorities scrambled Sunday to avert nuclear disaster, injecting seawater into the overheating reactors and relieving the pressure inside the nuclear power plant at Fukushima. And it goes on the reports that say U.S. government said that it was an act of total and complete desperation. That's not in that particular article, but I have it here in one of my other articles. So the issue here is you got 6 plants that can melt down. One's already clearly melted down. They're now hinting that 2 others have started melting down. There's radiation pouring out of these suckers. They're pumping it out with in the steam. And here's Japan. Okay? It's to the west of the U.S. East Coast. It's to the west of the U.S. West Coast. And so the trade winds, the jet stream is moving across Japan and lines up to come in at its strongest point. It's about 1,000 miles wide, this particular part of the jet stream. You can just type in West Coast jet stream. And in fact, we'll put it back on screen. We have a NOAA, National Weather Association map. And there you can see Japan to the west, the U.S. West Coast to the east. You can see the jet stream comes right in at around Northern California, Oregon, Washington. That's the strongest point. And here's another problem with these jet streams. Jet streams are between 50,000 and 10,000 feet in the atmosphere, and they vary. And if you look at the maps, where the jet stream comes in at its lowest point, that particular band of the jet stream, is it tends to dump in right over Oregon, Utah, and other western states. So a nice, healthy dose of Japanese radiation coming our way. And the media is not going to tell you, and the FBI and Homeland Security will go to the radiological metering centers and tell them, don't tell the public. We have guns. Don't let the scum know. We'll be right back.